Motivational interviewing is one of the most powerful techniques that you can use to help your nutrition clients. In this video, I'm going to show you how to adapt motivational interviewing principles into online coaching to reap the benefits and get as little downsides as possible. If you want to see more videos on motivational interviewing and how to coach better in general, make sure that you subscribe. So, motivational interviewing is traditionally done in face-to-face conversations. Maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour, direct conversation with the motivational interviewing practitioner, with the nutrition coach, with the personal trainer, in direct communication. So when people adapt online coaching, they often think, okay, motivational interviewing is less effective because in online coaching, there's usually less face-to-face interaction. And if not done well, that is correct, because then you create things like time pressure, because usually in online coaching, you have 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes of one-on-one conversations if you have this kind of conversations at all. So knowing how to change some of the processes to adapt them to online coaching is critical to get the most benefits while reducing the downside as much as possible. So let's get into some of the details. So one of the perceived, or many of the perceived downsides are less face-to-face time. So there is less direct communication, and motivational interviewing traditionally is taught as a conversation one-on-one. Also, online coaching tends to be less personal if you're not managing that well. There's less immediate interaction, less engagement. So there's less back and forth, exploring, creating plans, discussing, is the client ready, willing, and able. So this is just, there's less time for that. And the whole setup of online coaching is not done in that way that it allows these kind of conversations. We have to reframe some of these downsides to see that if we manage it carefully, there are actually a lot of positives of having less conversation, less one-on-one time. And let me show you how you can do that successfully. So there is, of course, less involvement, and we talked about this before, but less involvement can actually be a good thing. Think about it. In a one-on-one conversation, the other person is constantly reading your expression. So when the client talks about something, they're reading your expressions. You're influencing them during the conversation, even though that's not your goal. So if they have more time on their own thinking about some deep questions, maybe writing it in an email or in a text message, there is less, oh, what is coach thinking? And it's more they reflecting themselves. There's also less influence from you. And I talked about this in other videos that I link here and also in the comments, that what you do in a motivation interview and conversation can have a huge impact, and it can even lead to no change if you create resistance. Because if you have maybe a client and they're kind of ambivalent and yeah, I don't know, and maybe, and you get this idea of, oh, they're not motivated or they lack the insight to push through, then it's very often a common thing for coaches to find more reasons why the client should do that, or they express them more assertively, or they find other ways to push the client. And if a client that is ambivalent, if you have a client that's ambivalent and you push them in one direction, they will push against it and you create resistance. Resistance really is one of the biggest predictor for non-change. So removing yourself a little bit from some of these thought processes is super helpful for the client to manage this on their own. They have their own time, They have their own process and they're not influenced by you. And that means they have more ownership over the process. Think about it. If you have this conversation and you maybe tend to give some suggestions or some leading questions, suddenly the process is more, oh, am I doing it for coach or am I doing it for myself? But if they write an email saying, oh, I would like to change this and I would like to change that and I could try this, and they send it to you, it sticks. They just written it down in a very focused way. They've committed to change without any influence from you. And now if you maybe need 12 hours, 24 hours to respond, the client still sits with their thoughts and with their commitment. And there's also another benefit from a business perspective. If you maybe have group coaching or just text-based coaching, having the option to, hey, let's do a full 1 hour laser focused conversation, a full 1 hour motivational interviewing conversation, then you have always this high level premium service that you can offer. You can listen and reflect better. So, not being there and reading their responses instead of being immediately there and having to respond gives you more control over your response and you have less influence on their responses because there's not this interaction of they reading you. They have more time to think about it. They also have more time to maybe more clearly articulate their thoughts, and we will go into the benefits of that in a second. And again, the focus is on them. They're making the changes, they're arguing for changes, and they're not just talking about it, it's higher level. They are often writing about it. And writing how I'm going to drink more water every day is so much more commitment than saying this in a conversation. The key now is to find ways to have the benefits of online coaching plus the benefits of one-on-one conversations without or as little downsides from both. So you win and you win. And the idea is to have a hybrid model and to look at some of the motivation interviewing processes in a new way to optimize them for online coaching. There are four main processes. There is engage. You can think about this as the high process. It's you welcome the client, you have a little bit of a back and forth, small talk, and you get into a rhythm with each other. Then there is focusing. You articulate and you negotiate what is going to be the focus of the conversation. Once you have this target behavior, you find or you help the client uncover their motivation to change. That's the evoking process. And once you have a target behavior and their own reasons to change, you can move into planning and commitment. You build commitment towards the next action and they actually do it. And if you want to get better at these four main processes, I have a link here and also in the description below where I talk extensively and in detail how these four processes work and how they flow into one each other. The first process, engaging. So this is the part of establishing a good connection with your client. And this is one of the parts where online coaching can have a lot of downsides because online coaching can feel less personal while clients are seeking more personal connections. So this is something to be aware of, and you have to work extra hard to create this warm and welcoming and personal relationship online with your clients. And a couple of things that you can do is review some of the previous conversations or some of the previous notes that you make so that you know what is going on in their life. You can take a little bit more time in the beginning of a video call to engage and ask some maybe a little bit more personal questions or what is going on in their life, because you have reviewed some of the things. So you make everything you do more personal. And one of the big savers in online coaching is outsourcing the focusing part. So in traditional motivational interviewing, focusing is part of the whole conversation. But in online coaching, you can actually preempt this part of the conversation and take the time and have the benefits of online coaching. So the goal of the focusing process is to decide, okay, what does the client want to change? And it's very common both in one-on-one conversations, but also in online coaching, that the coach goes into the conversation and already has an idea. Oh yeah, I want them to eat lean protein. So they steer the conversation towards eating more lean protein instead of really listening to the client and listening to what they want. So having not a conversation, instead putting the focusing process more on them, can be super helpful, because this removes you from the process and they can decide what to focus on. And you can basically circumvent the premature focus trap by having the conversation with a little bit more distance. The client can think about it, you can think about it, you can clarify what they want. And then here comes the cool part. When you come to the direct communication, when you are in the video call, you can go back and say something like, so we've talked about outside and you wanted to focus on sleep better. Is this still relevant for you? And if they say yes, that's awesome. And you basically know that you circumvented the premature focus trap, that you don't focus on something that's actually not really relevant for the client. And instead you have double checked that this is the thing that they want to work on. And if you want to see how to do this in a real conversation, I have linked a demo conversation that I have recorded, plus a full breakdown in the card above and also in the comments below. So really, this is some of the most powerful ways how online coaching can enhance motivational interviewing. It removes the part of where you jump in and where you force the agenda, and instead the client sets the agenda. And you can recheck and double check that this is actually the thing that they want to talk about. The evoking process is essentially the process of finding why a client wants to work on this specific thing. And now you have to understand where we are already. Imagine you go into the video call with your client. We have a little bit of engagement, but you already have built a strong relationship. So that's not something that will take a lot of time. And you have focused already on the behavior you're going to change. So within 5 minutes, you are into the meat of the conversation of, okay, why do you want to sleep better? Why is that important to you? Online coaching actually has another benefit here. Think about a client that maybe has never thought about, oh, why is weight loss important to me? Or why is sleep important to me? And that often leads to these ramblings and tangents where they are going this direction, going this direction, and you try to focus them, but they're actually not really sure. And this can take a long time before the client is actually able to focus. The reason is they have never thought about it. So every detail, every side conversation, every tangent can be important. The benefit of online coaching is you can ask some of these crucial questions like, okay, what is good about changing? Or how would you like your health to be in 5 years? You can give this question to a client, ask them, hey, think about it, and when we are at our conversation, let's talk about it. And the beauty is they have time to think about all the directions, to think of what is important, what is less important. And then when you come to the conversation, it's so much more productive, it's so much more to the point. Because of the distance, of the time difference in online coaching, they had maybe 1 or 2 or maybe a week to think about why sleeping better is important to them. So you can reduce these long tangents where you don't really sure where's the client going, is this important, is it not important? You can reduce some of these processes and some of this time, make it outside of the actual 20 or 30 minutes of the video call. And when you're at the video call, you're focused. You know the target behavior. They've thought about why it's important. Now you clarify it and you really build the motivation. And here's the important part. In traditional motivational interviewing, you might see your coach every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks, and then you have the conversation. In online coaching, you have regular check-ins, maybe you have a course, maybe you have a Facebook group, or you have text messages. So instead of having this conversation, nothing happens having the conversation, you can build in some of these questions and processes and check-ins throughout your coaching process. And this can be done with an automated email or with a form. So instead of focus, focus, focus in traditional motivation interview, you can continue the conversation. And the next time you have a video call with them, they have progressed in their understanding and in their target behaviors more and more. And then you can pick up, have a focus, really dig deeper, and then let them go again and figure things out for themselves a little bit more. So this really is one of the big benefits of motivation interview online, that you can have this type of conversation all the time without even initiating it, making it part of your check-in process, making it part of maybe some of the content you send them. And if you want to learn more of how to find their why, how to use, what strategies to use to uncover their motivation to change, check out the video here, and I will also link it in the description below. Here are some more benefits of online coaching when you're using motivation interview. You avoid the whitening reflex. So when a client sends you an email because you ask them the 4 crazy questions, so what is bad about change? What is good about change? What is good about not changing? What is bad about not changing? They send you an email and you have time to consider what they are saying. You don't jump in and try to focus or push or argue for change. You can sit, you can meditate on it, you can digest it, and then really craft your response. That is something that you are not able to do in a one-on-one conversation. You can really think about the words, and also you can read the message multiple times, really understanding, what they are talking about. What is the change talk? What are their arguments for change? And where are they, maybe depending on the different stages of readiness? And you can take the time and really, really get into the message and understand what is going on. And this allows you to practice your open-ended questions, your affirmations, your reflections, and your summaries, because you have time. You have time to respond, and then you can craft your message. So it's so much more effective. And it also means that you have new opportunities to make your coaching more personal by using open-ended questions that are relevant to them. that you affirm some of their strengths or some of their insights very specifically so they know, oh, coach read my message. The final step of the process is planning. And planning means both commitment to change and being specific about what next action step is going to happen. In traditional motivational interviewing, you often have the issue of, okay, I have 1 hour and I want to let the client lead the conversation, but we also need to have a next action at the end of the conversation. And this is the difficult tension because when you notice, oh, I have 10 more minutes and we are not really at planning, you try to, okay, let's focus on that, let's focus on that, and then, okay, we have time. Don't have any time anymore, let's go. In online coaching, the normal conversation is outside of one-on-one conversations. So it's perfectly okay to not set a specific next action in the video conversation and instead say, oh, we have some rough ideas. Let's focus and let's be specific about what's going to happen over email or over messages. That gives both you and the client also the time to maybe come up with some creative solutions. Think about it. Oh, you look at the clock and say, oh, I have 10 more minutes and now I have to find a solution for this weird meal prep problem and I have no idea. And you try to force some solution that's not really working. In online coaching, you can say, oh, our time is up. Great session. We have found some really awesome reasons why meal prep is important to you. Let's continue our conversation over email to specify what you're going to do about it. I know I have emphasized this in this video a lot, but having this time and having not the immediacy of one-on-one conversation gives you so much potential for changes to the face-on-face conversation. You can remove some of the pressure, you can remove some of the we are negotiating the topics, you can remove some of the oh, what are we going to do kind of conversations. And when you come together, you can have these really productive, really deep, okay, let's go. Why is change so important to you? And then your client feels great about it, you feel great about it, and you're focused first and you will plan later. And the conversation is about connection and finding their why. Creating this hybrid model of having a continued conversation about why change is important over maybe email or check-ins is a unique way how you can reap the benefits of online coaching without having any negatives because the client continues to think about why change is important to them, while also removing some of the biggest traps like the expert role, the premature focus trap, because this is not going to happen. You let the client think about these things on themselves first. And when you come together, your intention and your goal is to find their motivation to change. So you basically avoid any kind of resistance or traps because the system, the hybrid system, allows you to step back a little and let the client think for themselves. So you're not there intervening, changing, creating resistance in any way. This is how motivation interviewing over online coaching can have a lot of benefits while avoiding a lot of the traps and a lot of the downsides that one-on-one motivation interviewing conversations can have. If you want to learn more, check out a video on an introduction to motivation interviewing, a real example of a conversation with a client and a breakdown. Also, I've linked a video with the 4 processes and a lot of details and some of the questions and some of the pitfalls that you want to avoid when you go through these processes. Thank you for watching.